come on, yeah. Never felt that, come on, yeah. When I never felt that, come on, yeah. You gotta get up.
There are a lot of famous courtrooms. There's the People's Court, Judge Judy's Court, even that military court in A Few Good Men.
You can't handle the truth!
But what about the Supreme Court? What exactly is it, and what do those justices do? If you remember back to high school civics class, the U.S. government has three branches. The legislative branch writes the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws, and the judicial branch interprets the laws to decide if they are constitutional. Just like there are cities, counties, and states, the judicial branch includes local, state, and regional courts. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the judicial branch, which makes it the most important court in the entire country. Sometimes lower courts will disagree on how a case should be decided. A court in one region may say that a law is constitutional, but a court in another region may believe the same law should be limited or overturned. The Supreme Court sorts out the different decisions and has final say on whether laws are constitutional. The court has 9 justices, or judges, who are appointed by the president and approved by the Senate. The justices serve for life. A decision happens when 5 justices, a majority, agree on an outcome. Since the Supreme Court is flooded with over 10,000 requests a year to review cases that have been decided by lower courts, they can only choose the most important cases to hear. Around 80 cases are presented to the court each term, and each term wraps up in early summer. Typically, the most controversial and most widely publicized cases are saved for last. So be sure to stay tuned during the summer as the Supreme Court comes down with more landmark decisions that may impact your life.
Judicial review?
The Supreme Court hears arguments this morning in a campaign finance case. It is the first of several major issues the justices will take up this term. Jan Crawford is outside the Supreme Court. Jan, good morning. What's on the docket?
Well, good morning, Nora. Good morning, Charlie. You know, I think this could be a term where there's just a controversy for everyone. They may not be on the same level as some of the cases we've seen in past years, like the one that upheld the president's health care reform law or the case that struck down bans on same-sex marriage. But we have got cases they're going to be tackling behind these doors this term that take on some of society's most contentious issues, like affirmative action, abortion protests, public prayers, and as you mentioned, that case today involving campaign finance that could affect big money donors. All of these cases, of course, could divide this court just as they've divided society. Think about the affirmative action case, for example. That's going to be argued next week. It involves a constitutional amendment from Michigan that voters passed. Now, if the court upholds that constitutional amendment, which bans affirmative action in college admissions, government contracting, and hiring, that could encourage other states across the country to pass similar bans. So these cases really could dramatically affect American life.
Jan, as you know, there were some what people considered victories for liberals in the last session of the court. Will that change in terms of the cut of these cases?
Well, you know, that's right, Charlie. I mean, the healthcare case, that shocked everyone. I think this term, though, is going to be back on familiar ground. I would expect all of these cases to be wins for conservative. The question, of course, is just how big these wins are going to be. And when we think about the court, you know, it's closely divided. You have to look at Justice Anthony Kennedy, that key swing vote in the middle. He sometimes goes to the left on cases involving gay rights, but on cases involving race and abortion, he's a solid conservative vote. So the case involving abortion protests, that involves a law that sets up a buffer zone around some of these abortion clinics. The court has upheld those laws in the past. I would look for it to strike it down as a violation of free speech this term. That's just one example of, I think, the way the court's going to take a different approach this year.
All right, Jan Crawford, thank you.
Because he wrote his name so big and boldly. You just said big lately.
Go to the thought bubble. The Brown decision was a watershed, but it didn't lead to massive, immediate desegregation of the nation's public schools. In fact, it spawned what came to be known as massive resistance in the South. The resistance got so massive, in fact, that a number of counties, rather than integrate their schools, closed them. Prince Edward County in Virginia, for instance, closed its schools in 1959 and didn't reopen them again until 1964. Except they didn't really close them because many states appropriated funds to pay for white students to attend, quote, private academies. Some states got so into the resistance that they began to fly the Confederate battle flag over their state capitol buildings. Yes, I'm looking at you, Alabama and South Carolina.
Lost your previous appeals, but still think that you have an issue worthy of the court's attention, you can petition for a writ of certiorari, which people in the know call the cert, because they're keeping it cash, which is short for casual. For a look at how the court chooses cases, let's go to the thought bubble, or the thubub. A lot of nicknames today, Stan. Or ST. Certiorari is a formal request that the Supreme Court hear your case, but petitioning for a writ is no guarantee of anything. The federal government's chief lawyer, the Solicitor General, is basically like a bouncer at a hot club, if you're old enough to get into a hot club. They screen out a lot of petitions because those cases don't raise a lot of federal law questions or because they've already been decided in other cases. Or they're not wearing good enough shoes to get in the club. If, and it's a big if, your petition is granted, it goes into the cert pool, the first round in which the justices decide which cases they're actually going to decide. The list of cases that will be decided is called the discussion list. For the judges to actually hear the case, called granting certiorari, 4 of the 9 justices have to agree to hear it. This is called the Rule of 4. The discussion of the discussion list and decision about whether or not to grant certiorari happens at the conference, which is like the back of the club where the really well-dressed people go. So the judges have read your petition, and 4 of them have decided that your case is one of about 80 that they will hear. Congratulations! Now you and the side that disagrees with your position have to submit briefs. Briefs are not underwear. Briefs are written legal arguments from each side explaining why the law favors their position. The party bringing the case seeking to overturn the lower court decision is the petitioner. The party that wants the court to uphold or affirm the lower court's decision is called the respondent. The petitioner also files a reply, which attempts to rebut the respondent, which is not a euphemism. After filing all this, you're finally on your way out of the thought bubble. You're on your way to court. Thanks, Thubub. You might think that there would only be 2 briefs in a case, one from each side, and it's true that there must be at least 2. But often there are many, many more briefs, and even boxer briefs. That's what Stan wears. Stan, put your pants on. All undergarments aside, individuals or groups who are not actually parties to the case but have an interest in the outcome can also file amicus curiae, or friend of the court briefs. Amicus briefs often contain different legal, economic, or historical arguments that can sometimes persuade justices and appear in their opinions. They're also one way that interest groups can attempt to influence the Supreme Court. After the briefs have been filed, the court schedules oral arguments, giving them time to read and consider the briefs. Each side gets half an hour to make its case, but this time includes questions from the justices, so most of the time is usually spent answering questions. Imagine a presentation with the most intense teacher you've ever had bombarding you with questions, except that there are 9 teachers. Well, 8, because Clarence Thomas never speaks. After oral arguments, you wait for a decision. The justices then meet in another conference, which is held on a Wednesday or a Friday, because there's good TV the other days. In order for the court to render an official decision, 5 of the 9 justices, a majority, must agree on at least one of the legal arguments that either affirms or overturns the lower court's decision.